Hi guys, I'm Matt Jones and I'm stood in my mountain bike workshop where I do all things bike, and today we're going to be working through a step-by-step guide of how to create your very own bike rack, and it's a really simple DIY bike storage solution that helps you get your bikes off the ground, and I'm going to mount mine on this wall behind me. I currently use these little front wheel hooks, but I find them to be really fiddly and quite awkward, so we're going to be coming up with what is actually such a simple build and a permanent bike storage solution where you just plonk your front wheel in and it's going to be really sturdy and solid on the wall. So step one is the list of materials, and for this build it's so simple. We just need some timber, and I've been out and bought these 2 lengths of 2" by 2" timber, and then I've got some wood glue and a box of screws to fix it all together. But this is very DIY and super simple, so the list of materials isn't very long. Step 2 then is measuring up. So dependent on what bike you want to mount on the wall determines how long we're going to cut the timber down to. So I'm going to measure my front wheel at its widest point, which is just under 70 centimetres. And what that means is we need the trough that the front wheel sits in to be less than 70 centimetres, because otherwise the front wheel is going to pass through and we want it to wedge on top to actually support the bike. But next we're going to start cutting up this wood and assembling the bike rack. So I'm going to cut 2 lengths of wood at 60 centimetres, and then the uprights on the wall are going to be slightly longer. I'm going for 80 centimetres. So I'm going to mark those up now, first with the 60, the pencil. There's 1, there's 2, and I've got a set square here to draw a proper right angle for me to cut along. So we want this to all fit together nice and square. When it comes to screwing it, it will make life easier. There's 1. There's 2. So these two 60 metre length, 60 metres, they're not 60 metres actually. If they were, we'd be in trouble. We'd be mounting a ferry to the wall. Okay. These two 60 centimetre lengths are the ones that are going to come out of the wall. And then later on, we're going to determine how wide they are based on how wide my tyre is. But actually that's what my front wheel is going to sit in and support the whole bike. But now we need to get these 80 centimetre ones. Yes. We've almost got all the bits we need. There's a couple more bracing and strengthening bits. But these two 80 centimetre lengths are the ones that are going to sit flush with the wall. Like that. We're actually, the reason we've made them longer is we're going to have 20 centimetres sticking out the top of where the front wheel sits. That will help guide it into place when you lift the bike up and in, and kind of just keeps everything straight and square, which is nice. So now we're going to have to start putting this together, but you can see how quickly you get all the essential bits to actually build this rack. So if you are aiming to make more than one, you could do it between T and the extenders. So the next step is to make a 60 centimetre by 60 centimetre right angle, which is going to look something like this. That's what's going to mount to the wall. So I'm going to measure that out from the long piece to mark where they're going to be glued and screwed together. But bear in mind that these dimensions I'm using might be different to yours. If you're going to be mounting a really big 29er bike or a fat bike, you'll have a piece of wood longer than 60 centimetres. And if you're going to be mounting a smaller bike or even a BMX, you're not going to need as much wood. So I've drawn that line. That is going to mount exactly like that by running a screw or 2 screws through there to fix all this together and using glue. But because I've got a pillar drill behind me and because I don't want to split the wood, we're going to drill some pilot holes. First glue, and then screw. We've built one of these, we need to build another exact replica. It'll take a little while for the glue to dry, but with the screws in there, that's absolutely solid. So our bike is in safe hands here. One more to go. Right, so we're doing well, we're getting there. Next step is for these to be braced with a proper diagonal, which is going to run from here to here. And the best way to get the right size and dimensions isn't using a tape measure, but using some of your leftover timber, whether they're offcuts or you bought them, placing this on top, figure out exactly where you want that to sit. The wider you go, the longer the distance, the more structural it is. So we're going to go about halfway, and then use this as a trace, because if you measure it, you might get it slightly wrong. If you physically draw the exact size from start to finish, you can't get it wrong. You know it's going to fit. So I've done that, marked it off. Now we're going to cut those lines, and then that's going to fix in between there in the exact same way as before, glued and screwed. Okay, so same process now. We know that that's going to live in there. So same thing, 2 pilot holes, 2 screws in each, and a bit of glue. These are going to sit on the wall exactly like this. So now we need to determine how wide apart they have to be, and that's based on the width of your tyre. Every bike's different. Road bikes have got really, really skinny tyres, and great big mountain bikes have fat tyres. So I've chosen the bike that I'm going to be mounting to the wall, and I'm going to measure the width of the tyre and make sure there's enough clearance for the entire tyre and rim to pass through. So let's measure up. Most tyres will have the dimensions listed on the sidewall. This one says 2.5 inches, but when we measure up, that's actually a bit narrow. So I'm going to go for 3 inches to give enough clearance to throw the front wheel in, because you don't want to have to be wedging it in. You want it to be a nice, easy process. So I'm going to now cut some 3-inch long, short little battens that are going to space these 2 main frames apart from one another. And I'm going to use 1, 2, 3. So 3 of those, all 3 inches long. 3, 6, and 9. 1, 2, 3. So these are effectively acting as spacers. So I'm going to put 1 in the center here, 1 near the bottom, and this is like the measurement gauge of how big your wheel actually is. So I said that my total wheel length was 70 centimeters, and we need to be under that. So all the way out here will pretty much allow the wheel to be snug, but I'm going to try it in a little bit. We're going to test it out, and then we're going to fix it exactly in position. So that's actually how it's going to look with the wall here. And I'm going to lift my bike in from this angle, imagine I'm on my side, and hook the front wheel in there. So the best way I think to do that is to take the front wheel out of the bike. We can walk around and check it. So if I'm going to put it there, that's going to be too short. We can open it up, and now I can see that the wheel, that's plenty enough. As long as the wheel can slot in enough that the whole tyre passes through the trough, you know you're going to be able to grab it and it's going to be wedged against the wall. So that's quite nice. After measuring up, I was right. So I know that spacer can sit all the way at one end, and now 1, 2, 3 times we're going to do the same thing, pilot holes, glue and screw. Break the internet. Little glue tree over there. Now we're just going to sandwich it all together and add the screws. I'm getting close now, I'm getting excited to hang the bike. Lovely. Right, I flipped it over, last 3 screws, and we have built a bike rack. Nice. Look at that. I've made something usable. I've made something to add value to my bike garage. And it's going to live on the wall like this. So if you've been confused the whole time and you've needed to see it to imagine it, we're going to pick up the bike, lift the front wheel over this trough. It's going to sit in here snug, using this part of the wall as a bit of a guide if needs be. So the only thing left to do is to mount it, and the important factor here is getting the correct height. So I'm going to put the wheel back in my bike, the front wheel, stand the bike up against the wall, and make sure that where it's mounted gives clearance for the back wheel, the back tyre to be off the ground. Because if it actually sits on the ground, it's not going to hang, it's going to struggle to sit flush with the wall. So stand the bike up, like this. Walk towards the wall. So you kind of ride the bike up the wall, make sure it's off the ground, and the horizontal that's going to come away, my trough, needs to sit underneath the forks there. So I'm going to mount it exactly into this board here. Let's do it. Solid. So now the moment of truth. Let's see if we got all our measurements right. Roll it forwards. Yes! I'm really chuffed with that. Very, very chuffed with that. That has been a step-by-step guide of how to build a DIY bike rack. You can head to the Silverline Tools website to check out the full range of tools I've used to build this bike rack. I'm really chuffed with it. Quite proud of myself even. Cheers.